Good morning, students, and welcome all. This is a video part 1, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe. It's a very interesting topic and it shows a lot of transition that has happened in the map of Europe in the history. Let us examine few events and some important terms. Let us first understand the meaning of nationalism. Nationalism is feeling of belongingness. That is, you associate your identity to a culture, to a geographical land, to a language, and creates a loyalty that causes people to think of themselves as a nation. During the 19th and 20th centuries, nationalism was a powerful force that could create one nation from many separate countries or break one nation into other countries. Let us talk about this question. This question lands up for about one marker usually in the board paper. This is about painting of Frederick Sororio. He gives an explanation that establishment of democratic and socialist republics was an important event of the time. And as we see in this picture, that France with his flag, with his people, is leading, and the rest of the countries with their people and their flags following up the same. So basically, it is conveying that after the French Revolution, other countries were also inspired and they were also enlightened with the feeling of nation states as well as individual identity as well as more importance to human life. So let us check what was the status of European society at that time. Very well, we understand from class 9 that the society was having a major portion of people with a high aristocracy and a dominant group all over the Europe. This was a class which associated with each other and not with the countries. Even inter kingdom marriages were done on the basis of classes only. They had a common interest and lifestyle, and they owned large country estates and town houses. Most of them spoke French. On the other hand, the lower class consisted of the peasants, and they were landless or they worked as serfs or the slaves. This is the recapitulation of your class 9, chapter 1, French Revolution. That first of all, uh, the monarchy was changed to constitutional monarchy with the creation of National Assembly, then Legislative Assembly, and then Convention, and in the last, that was Directory. When it was realized that Robespierre, who was leading the Republic, could not be handled properly, and the government should not be given in one hand as the people assumed. So the power was given to five people for directory, but due to conflicts in opinion, it led to unstable political conditions, which led to the rise of Napoleon. He had made a lot of administrative and economic reforms, and he got involved in massive wars. In the last, he was defeated at the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleonic Code of 1804, one of the important questions, it usually lands up for 3 marker. The features of Napoleonic Code. It was return of monarchy, administrative reforms were introduced, equality before law and right to property was there, removal of guild restrictions in the towns, then improvement in transport and communication, uniform laws, weights and measures were done. So basically, for example, in your NCRT book, there is a unit given as LA, the unit standard unit of cloth, which varied after few areas. It kept on changing. So that was also standardized so that free markets could be available for trade and more economic prosperity could be brought down. So the administrative changes were wonderful, but slowly and steadily, the nature of warfare of Napoleon was now a question of people, and they did not like it, and they were annoyed with it. Let us understand the concept of nation states. Basically, it was one which the majority of its citizens and not its rulers came to develop a sense of common identity and shared the history or descent. This commonness was forged through struggles, through the actions of leaders and the common people. Zollverein, very, very important from the viewpoint of one marker. In 1834, a customs union or Zollverein was performed, and it was the initiative of Prussia. German states also joined. It abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies. These currencies were reduced from 30 to 2, and this created a network of railways which increased the mobility and economic benefits for trade. And very well, we understand that the first clear expression of nationalism was the French Revolution in 1789, where we could see the ideas of La Parte, Les Citoyens, and French flag came up, tricolor was there, and the state journal converted into the National Assembly. A lot of hymns were composed, oaths were taken, national anthem, Marseillaise was created. So all these kind of things came up during the French Revolution. Concept of liberalism. It can be understood in a better way with two features. But before that, let us understand the literal meaning. Liberalism is derived from the Latin word that is your liber, which means being free. So basically, it says that there should be a freedom for individual and equality for that person even before the law. Politically, we can say it was like a government by the consent. That means end of autocracy should be there and the clerical privileges. Emphasis should be given for a constitution and a representative government could be created. And liberals also stressed that there should not be private property as it used to be. Then, economically, if we want to understand the meaning of liberalism, we can say it stood for the freedom of markets. Free trade could be promoted, and there should not be any restrictions regarding movement of goods and capital. And this was facilitated by the making of Zolverein also. This also helped a lot. And these concepts give you the meaning which was widened during this period for the term liberalism. Let us talk about conservatism. Conservatism, which meant slow and steady changes, and very well, they were not welcoming the changes that were brought down. They still believed in the old methodologies of government, and they did not like that social hierarchies and the privileges to be taken away, or the privileged classes to be taken away with their salutations and privileges. So all these things were not liked by the conservatism, and these people, those who thought with this line of thinking, they welcomed only the old ways, monarchs and the place of church and the old society, old social structures, that ways. Now let us talk about the Treaty of Vienna. In 1815, all the four powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, collectively defeated Napoleon. And basically, they all did this to curb and rechange all the things which Napoleon had done. Only the 39 federations which were there, German federations, they were untouched, and rest, it was kept in mind that major changes should be brought down to bring back the old situation which were there before Napoleon. So monarchy to be restored, Bourbon dynasty came back in France, and other main thing that was kept in mind was that France was sandwiched with such different portions allotted to different nations so that it may not expand easily. The rise of revolutionaries after establishment of conservative regimes in Europe after 1815, it was very obvious that the people, those who were talking about freedom, equality, revolutionary ideas, after conservatism or the conservative regime, they had to move underground and they could not easily talk about it. A lot of censorship was imposed here and there, and the leading personalities or the iconic personalities of the time were the revolutionaries as Otto von Bismarck, Mazzini, and Garibaldi. Let's talk about Mazzini first. After the Congress of Vienna in 1815, conservative regimes were restored to power. Many liberal minded people went underground because of the fear of repression. Secret societies were made and they spread their ideas. They opposed monarchical rule and they fought for liberty and freedom of the classes. And Giuseppe Mazzini was an Italian and he was thrown away to exile in 1831, and he became the member of secret society of Carbonari, and he himself made two societies as Young Italy in Marseilles and the other one Young Europe in Berne, and various other countries also had the secretive societies as Germany, France, Switzerland, Poland. These were all following up. Mazzini was also called as a prophet of Italian unification, and Giuseppe Garibaldi, he was also called as the sword of Italian unification, and his army of red t-shirts helped Victor Emmanuel II to conquer and unify Italy. And of course, we'll talk in detail about him in unification of Germany. Bismarck was the other revolutionary. He followed the policy of blood and iron. He said, not by speeches and resolutions of majorities are the great questions of the time decided upon, but by blood and iron. The age of revolutions, it was the July Revolution, your French Revolution, then Greek War of Independence, and the Treaty of Constantinople. All these were following up and witnessed during this period. Now let us understand the term Romanticism. It was a more emotional content with the term nationalism. It was a cultural movement which sought to develop a particular form of nationalist sentiment. Romantic artists and poets were generally criticizing the glorification of reason and science. It mainly focused on emotions, intuition, and mystical feelings. And their effort was to create a sense of shared collective heritage, a common cultural past, as the basis of a nation. So basically, it was a time where language, folk songs, folk poetry, all these were popularized to create the feeling of nationalism with emotion, which led to the coining of the term Romanticism. So that is all here as part one of this chapter. I hope you all have understood. All of you just stay safe and be happy.